I want to welcome you to our All Children Reading Innovator Spotlight webinar. We're delighted to have each one of you joining us on the call today. My name is Michelle, and I'm going to be your host today for our webinar. We're excited to share with you the work of two of our winning innovators from round one of All Children Reading, a grand challenge for development. You'll hear about the work they've been doing and the lessons they've learned in their projects over the last couple of years. I hope what is learned and shared today will strengthen the work of all of us as we seek to increase early grade reading outcomes for children in developing countries. With our innovators, I just want to take a couple minutes for those of you who are new to All Children Reading to provide a quick introduction to our grand challenge. The Reading Grand Challenge for Development is a competition that leverages science and technology to apply scalable solutions to improve literacy skills of early grade learners in developing countries. Round one of this Grand Challenge launched in November of 2011, a $9 million grant competition. The competition was focused on two areas, which was teaching and learning materials and education data. In September 2012, we announced 32 winners, and those came from 22 different countries. Round two of All Children Reading launched in February 2014, and the grant and multiple prize competitions. And our focus areas for this round are mother tongue instruction and reading materials, family engagement, and children with disabilities. Today are two winning innovators from round one, so their programs focused on the areas previously mentioned. Our first innovator that we will share, who present today, is Jacole Douglas, and she's from World Education. 8 years of experience working in international development and education. Joined World Education in 2011 and provides programmatic support to the Cambodia program, which is advising the program's early grade reading projects. Joining World Education, Joel was a high school English arts teacher, primarily working with at-risk youth and youth performing below grade level in the U.S. and also Nepal to reading skills and academic achievement. She's a current teaching license in the U.S. and extensive career development experience. Jacole also holds a Master's of Education degree focused on international education policy from Harvard University, and she's currently completing coursework to become a licensed reading specialist. So welcome, Jacole, and we'll turn the meeting over to her.
Great, thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Jacole. I'm talking from Phnom Penh, Cambodia, where I'm based, and I'll tell you a bit more about our project, Total Reading Approach for Children, or TRAC. About World Ed. We were founded in Lucknow, India in 1951, though we're currently based in Boston, Massachusetts. We're 20 different countries. The World Ed's mission is to provide educational, social, and economic development opportunities for marginalized children, youth, and adults. Our program is designed to contribute both the individual of our beneficiaries as well as the community and national development. We've been here for over 20 years, and our projects currently focus on basic ed, normal ed, safe migration, migrant youth and potential migrant youth, and literacy training. The TRAC project was based on a World Bank early grade reading assessment testing that took place in 2010. And this testing found out that 4% of children tested were unable to demonstrate grade 1 reading skills. Based on the Ministry of Education, Youth, and Sport decided to shift to a more phonics-based approach to teaching reading. And with this came the development of new textbooks. The committee is highly complex. There are also high-level of parents who don't encourage reading at home, as well as limited access to books. So this, with the new reading curriculum that the ministry is developing, provides a prime opportunity to try innovative gift to promote really great reading. These changes were all within textbooks, were all happening right as All Children Reading was being launched. TRAC would enhance the ability of children to acquire essential early grade reading skills through an approach that focuses on the totality of the children's learning environment, including classroom learning and assessment, as well as parental reinforcement. So hoping to do reading at school and then have that reinforced at home and involve parents in that. That was implemented in 8 pilot schools in Siem Reap and Kompong Cham provinces. The investment of another project that just did last week, the USAID funded project, took place over 5 years, called Improved Basic Education in Cambodia. And this project worked to address the access and quality of basic ed in over local schools in Cambodia. So TRAC schools are also schools, and we leveraged those investments as the schools had already received child-friendly school inputs, teacher training, school management and leadership training, among other interventions under IBAC. Benefited over 1,350 students in grades 1 and 2. We closely with our longtime local partner, Kitchen Action for Primary Education, or CAPE. We have an app development partner, Education Technology, worked with to develop our mobile learning application. In addition, our NGO partners still work closely with the Ministry of Education, Youth, and Sport. Technical working group that was comprised of members of the Primary Education Department, the Department of Curriculum Development, the Teacher Training Department, is from the provincial offices of education in the province we were working in, as well as district offices of education. So our really tried integrated and an innovative approach. The foundation of TRAC is really the reading benchmarks that we developed. These correspond with the new national reading curriculum, and we work closely with advisors from the Ministry of Education to develop these benchmarks. We split the curriculum into 9 intervals in grade 1 and 8 intervals in grade 2 that focused on specific skills and competencies. At the end of each of these intervals, students are assessed on the benchmarks using what we call the continuous assessment system. And this ensures that struggling students were identified early on. Previously, students were usually only tested the year, and so if they were struggling and didn't get the support they needed, often just fell so far behind it was hard to catch up. So this helps teachers get those students and provide them with targeted interventions in a timely manner. In addition, we also introduced the position of literacy coaches into schools. Literacy coaches were kind of linked between the schools and the parents, and they also helped actual benchmark assessment process as well as the rapid response system. So our response system includes a map, which I'll discuss a bit more detail in a few minutes, as well as a reading toolkit that included read games and activities for students to practice, and also promoted parent engagement and tutoring. Details about the reading benchmarks. Each included 6 different guidelines that discussed reading competencies, reading skills. These reading skills were fluency, vocab, phonics, and comprehension, and these were all color-coded throughout the benchmark booklet that we made. So it's new when they were vocabulary or focusing on fluency. So it included a content overview, indicative tasks to guide teachers, continuous assessments, which were included in the back of the book, and we also provided laminated copies of all the assessments to the teachers, and also highlighted which learning games students should play. So if they decided poorly on one of the benchmarks, the benchmark booklet actually says, okay, still you need to play this game from the reading toolkit and this game from the mLearning app. So it's all out very clearly for the teachers. In grade, we also added in writing skills in alignment with the national curriculum. And every semester, students also take a fluency test, one-on-one test with a teacher literacy coach on fluency skills. Learning app is really one of the key innovations of TRAC. So we literacy app and lead to the national curriculum. Very closely with Education Technology for Development, ET4E, to develop the app. They already had the software, and then they modify it for different languages. And so they work already, and then we provided the content, the audio, the graphics to specific to the Cambodian context. So in the app, there are 31 units, and each unit includes sound games, 3 different learning games, as well as a mini story that reads all the skills in the unit. And a few minutes ago, the best tells me which unit students need to gain specific skills. There are 0 stories for listening comprehension, and as students progress in their reading skills, they're also able to practice with those as well. We 20 tablets to each target school. This investment, the project ensured access and maintenance by developing very explicit protocols about the storage of tablets. So we provided safes to schools. So when tablets weren't in use, they were stored in the safe. And so just trainings on the frequency and methods for charging tablets, as orientations for students and teachers on how to use the tablets and care for them. It will be available very shortly on Google Play. It'll be available for free download. So beyond those in our target schools will be able to access the app and use it to practice reading skills. So TRAC has some good results in improving reading performance and the magnitude of reduction of those students falling into the category of poor performance. The number of students scoring in the poor category on assessments, 22% to only 4%, and a change of 81.8% from interval 1 of the benchmarks to interval 9, so the course of the year. And that was this year. Last year, it was a 66.7% reduction. Here, the number of children falling in the category of poor from year 1 to 2, and look at that reduction. The percentage of students who scored 4 across all intervals only declined by 34%. So this is highly positive, though our target has been 50%, so it's it by a little bit, but it's still showing that the number of students scoring poorly has reduced. We have schools that we use to compare our schools, and the reading test scores for children in our treatment schools after one full intervention read a statistically significant difference in outcomes on early grade reading assessments into our equivalent control schools. So during the course of 1,000 different intertests, another key important part of the project was parental outreach and engagement. This was very challenging, but we succeeded in 86% of surveyed parents believing that their schools do have the ability to teach literacy to their children effectively, which is an improvement. This is due to service training and intensive code that TRAC provided to schools. 87 school stakeholders that we worked with included teachers, literacy coaches, and school management personnel, all trained in TRAC activities. In terms of some lessons learned, how critical the reading benchmarks have been to the success of the project, as well as to the rapid response system. The TRAC benchmarks, first time anything like that had been developed in Cambodia across any sub or grade level. So it was pretty new, and it really helps focus the new curriculum and provide a guide for teachers and teaching it. We had a lot of positive feedback on that, and there's interest in developing similar benchmarks, basic benchmarks for other grade and subject levels. We're also an instrumental investment, key to the project's success. Again, the first time such a position has been introduced in Cambodia, and they proved to be a very valuable solution to reading. There's a lot of interest among the common councils where we've worked to fund support to actually sustain this position beyond the life of the project. The communities themselves recognize the value of this position, which is great. Our lessons to learn was how challenging and engaging parents turned out to be. A lot of parents, while they have best of intent when it comes to helping their children learn, simply don't have the time to be as involved as we have been hoping that they would be. And so couldn't come to school on a regular basis to help students in the classroom or borrow teaching aids from the library, as we had expected. However, 57% did borrow reading materials from schools at least once every 6 weeks. They could check those materials out and bring them home to practice with their children at home. Another lesson learned kind of off of the parent engagement was use of tutoring. This hadn't been in our original plan for the project, but that is a really effective way to kind of fill that gap that we were expecting parents to fulfill. We used sixth grade students to tutor younger students, grade 1 and 2 students during break times, and popular both among the older students and students, a very popular activity. Another is that mobile learning technology is actually feasible in rural Cambodian schools as long as there is a combination of safe batteries for charging and specialized protocols for use. And I've experienced now that it's been done successfully through TRAC that it'll pave the way for farther efforts to introduce technology and mobile technology into classrooms. It's becoming a lot more prevalent in Cambodia as they've become affordable, but we realize that there are very few applications available in Khmer language that are designed for Cambodian children. And through TRAC, we kind of realized that there's a huge gap there, that with donor support and, intermother and people working in the sector, there's we continue doing education apps. In sustainability of the TRAC and enduring impacts, movement has been the adoption of TRAC's benchmark framework. So in August, TRAC World Project in the Ministry of Education conducted a national seminar that had participation from all ministry departments, and the minister himself attended the full seminar. And at this, he announced the formal adoption of TRAC's benchmark framework. So, remarkable achievement for the project, and it far exceeded our expectations. And I think it really highlights the impact that TRAC has had on curriculum design for the national reading curriculum. TRAC has been an example of an effective model for government and NGO collaboration. The ministry has really been involved throughout the course of the project, and that's been instrumental in its success. Another help with the sustainability of TRAC's outcomes are the products that we've developed. So we have the reading benchmarks for grade 1 and 2, which will be formally adopted by the ministry. We've developed calls for the rapid response system and the continuous assessment to responses to help struggling students. We have the learning app that will be available for free download, and we have the read toolkit, which can be purchased through the social enterprise that's associated with our local partner. This will still be available to schools, to the public, to continue noting what we've learned from TRAC and what we've developed under TRAC. And finished last week, the pilot portion at least, we are still continuing to our lessons learned and expand on the project. We were recently a project called Technology for Education Systems Transformation. This is funded through USD Cambodia's Development Innovations Project, and we're going to digitize and automate the benchmark assessment. And students will actually be able to take the assessments under TRAC on tablets. So it's another way to utilize the tablets that we supplied to schools. And we also anticipate expanding the project to over 175 additional schools in 5 provinces. And through the project, we also plan to develop benchmarks for grade 3, so we'll have the complete package final. That's in a nutshell for you, kind of a brief, a rushed overview. That's your question.
Well, I've had several people chat questions to me, and if you have additional questions, you can chat them to the host. I'll ask you a few. We have about 6 minutes for questions before our next presentation.
Okay.
The first question is just if you provide more detail about the literacy coaches. Are they teachers from the school you work with, or are they other school personnel? How does that work, and what training do they receive?
So the coaches are kind of a variety of different people. Some teachers, some are school directors, some are retired educators, others are community members that have been invested in education. So the communities to select the literacy coaches. So it kind of varies by community and by who applies and who's qualified. In terms of trainings they receive, we work very closely with, they receive intensive training on all of the benchmarks for grade 1 and grade 2, as well as rapid response system, all learning. They'll also conduct parent meetings with meet with them to kind of help them in what they should be including in these meetings, and they report back to us. They also are doing home visits to home students and meeting with the parents and calling parents into the school to try to get that connection going. So really they're on all aspects of the project, and they're really instrumental in the rest of its implementation.
The next question is, how have you measured learning gains using the tablet-supported educational content, and how did you develop and test the content?
Sorry, you were breaking up a bit. Can you repeat that, please?
The question is, how have you measured learning gains using the tablet-supported educational content, and develop and test the content?
Okay. So and something I forgot to mention, in developing the mLearning game, this was also reviewed by the Ministry of Education. So again, it was very much linked to the curriculum. In developing the game, I mentioned before, Education Technology for Development already had this fantastic app developed. So they had all these different games that did and use a variety of languages, and we decided which games would fit the best with our specific purposes, and created the content for that. And so we test in schools and with our students. So practice that we reading any of the issues came up and adjusting things kind of throughout this project. And there have been a lot of challenges particularly with the operating system. It's an Android app, but instead of making the app compatible with the operating system that is most common here in Canada, has required a lot of adjustment. So the testing was actually make sure that the app actually works. We also, listen to student responses and their feedback, as well as teachers and literacy coaches.
The next question is, did the organization, did World Ed have a team to help in continuous assessment, or was this conducted by the teachers?
Just correctly, was it held pre-assessments, or was it teachers? Is that correct?
Yeah, or who conducted it?
Okay. So the teachers and literacy coaches conduct the assessments. World Education and CAPE provide significant training to our school stakeholders, to the teachers, literacy coaches, and school directors in each grade level, and teachers themselves conduct the assessments and the literacy coaches. And was there to provide support and do spot checks, but the teachers were the ones actually conducting the assessments.
And we have a question also, if you could just provide a few more details about the hero stories that you referenced.
Oh, sure. So the hero were basically, each had stories which linked directly to that unit. But into that, in the app, there were 6 hero stories that were stories except on the app, and provided students with an opportunity to listen to stories and work on comprehension through listening. And as they progress in their skills, they'd also be able to turn off the audio and read the stories themselves. And the 6 characters that you could choose from to be kind of your avatar, I guess. And so stories were based on each of those six characters.
So do you have the comparative results from the control school?
Can
a question about if you have the comparative results from control schools?
The comparative, we did assessments in control schools as well. I don't have the figures offhand. We did compare them with our treatment schools. And schools, at the beginning of the project, we identified control schools that were equivalent. Statistically significant difference between our treatment and control schools. So I can provide you more detail on that.
Question is, does TRAC know which component or part of the intervention design had the most impact on your results or improvements?
Because TRAC was so, it's really, we didn't collect that data specifically because students received interventions. They didn't receive just 2. And it's hard to kind of piecemeal out which impact. In general, the development of the reading benchmarks and assessments, I guess as a whole, because it's what allows us to actually assess students and identify the struggling students, which wasn't happening before. Our rapid response system, we have that out. But that's next round.
Much, Jacole, and we appreciate your time and sharing about this project with us. We'll go ahead. I know there's other questions, but we're going to go ahead and move to our next presenter so we can make sure that they have time to make their presentation as well. Our next presenter is Ragini Nagar, and with Sesame Workshop in India for 5 years. She leads all outreach projects in India. She is responsible for developing program strategies, program design, on-ground partnerships, program implementation, monitoring, and advocacy with the government and other stakeholders. She brings over 15 years of experience to Sesame Workshop in India. Her is colleague Ruchi Singh, who manages outreach content development and research at Sesame Workshop in India. She is a development professional with specific interest in children with disabilities and explore inclusion in practice. Her research interests range from equality education in India to assessing opportunities available for schools for marginalized children. Ruchi is a special educator by training and holds a master's degree in global health and development from the University College London. Ruchi also has extensive experience in designing assessments and qualitative research, as well as inclusive curriculum. Both Ruchi and Anugini to our webinar today. I just want to remind you, if you have questions for the presenters, feel free to chat them to the host during presentation, and we'll address those to our presenters at the end of their presentation. So thank you, Anuragini and Ruchi, and go ahead with your presentation.
And we are hoping we find some similarities in the work that we are doing. So briefly, Ghari Ghari Sim Sim is a television program. It is the Indian adaptation of Sesame Street. Been on television for the last 7 years. In addition, we have a lot of outreach projects. So when we presented our proposal, we had given Bihar as the state where we will provide the support on early grade reading. Then we chose Bihar. So Bihar is in east of India. It belongs to one of the poorest states in the country. As one of the poorest performing learning indicators in the country, which is visible from data that you would see in the presentation. Low learning levels were challenges that we saw from the secondary data. Probably most of the government-run primary schools in the state and in the country are multi-grade. It means that children from grade 1, 2 and 3 sit together. So it's a classroom of 60 to 80 children ranging from 6 years to 8 years, and there's most one teacher. That was the fact that these teachers are ill-equipped not only to manage the class, but don't have learning materials to address these different learning levels. There is low motivation. Most of these teachers are placed through a political placement service, and that's a very typical situation in Bihar. What was the need that we identified? We said, okay, if the children are not learning as much as they should, and that there is such low motivation in teachers and that so many children together, how do we bring together a package of content not only engages the children, but helps the teachers facilitate learning in a more effective and efficient manner? Process with Sesame, we undertake a needs assessment in every program area. So I will do is I will hand over the phone to the speaker phone to Ruchi, and she will take you to the key findings of the needs assessment that does design the program strategy. Ruchi.
Hi everybody. So I just wanted to quickly go over certain reflections that we had from our needs assessment. Like Anuragini said, that it is imperative for us while we're designing a program to see what is the need of of the children in the location that we are targeting at. So when we conducted the needs assessment, this was done in January 2013. We conducted the needs assessment with around 32 children from different districts in the state of Bihar, which ultimately landed up being our intervention district. So we wanted, while doing the needs assessment, we wanted to understand that what was the teaching and learning practice that the teachers in Bihar were following. We wanted to explore what was the kind of curriculum, the syllabus, the textbooks, and the teaching methodology that the teachers were adopting to teach children, and most importantly, how were the students learning and how much did the students learn, what they were learning. So we did have in the background a lot of secondary research and figures thrown by national surveys like ASAR and all those things, but we also wanted to find out what were the students learning and how were they performing. So we found some interesting things from our needs assessment research. We found that students in general were performing a grade lower than the grade that they were enrolled in. So what that means is that a grade 2 child enrolled in grade 2 would be essentially performing at beginner grade 1 level. A grade 1 child would have absolutely even no pre-literacy skills. So the child was enrolled in grade 1 but had never gone to ECE program, had never gone to a preschool curriculum, and was straight away coming to a school system, regular school system, probably completely unprepared to handle the curriculum which the child was being asked to learn. What we also found out was that there were a very few children who were able to recognize letters, write alphabets, or could even attempt at reading any kind of stimulus presented to them. But what was good was that most of the children had good listening comprehension skills and were mostly able to recognize a lot of words which were familiar to them. So we took the findings from our needs assessment research and we developed our content and our program strategies based on the findings that we had.
So as you can see, these were the defined goals and objectives of the project. Because of some delay in permission, so we are working with the government of the Department of Primary Education, implementing this project. It took us some time to get the required permissions, which is why the project got delayed, and we are now finishing the final evaluation only next year. So what were the strategies that we defined for achieving our objectives? These that we will work within the National Curriculum Framework guidelines to develop the content which is for grade 1 and 2 in government-run primary schools. We also said that now that we have defined the content, we will try and build capacities of the participating teachers to understand the concepts that we are introducing through our interventions. We have used existing standardized tools like EGRA to assess the learning outcomes. What we're trying to now do is to take preliminary findings to the government and see if they can scale it up at their own cost and availability. This slide primarily represents the various project components. We have talked about the needs assessment. These are steps that we followed for designing the intervention. So the way we will break it up is Ruthi will talk a little more about the content development in the subsequent slides. But what we'll do is talk somewhat about the capacity development and monitoring in the next slide that we have here for you. So the project is reaching 375 primary schools in districts. So districts are administrative units in each state. These districts identified with support from World Vision. World Vision has presence in these 3 areas. And with help from World Vision and the government of Bihar, we identified schools where the intervention will happen. This is being split up, as you can see. There are 175 schools in Patna, 100 in Vaishali, 100 in Bhojpur. More schools in Patna because Patna is the state capital of Bihar. And we also wanted to capture some urban elements to understand differentiation in learning, if at all. Through this project, we are reaching 30,000 children in the 375 schools. And the pace that we are reaching 2 classes per school, so there is grade 1 and grade 2. And each class, even if we take it separately, there are 40 children. So 35 into 80 is approximately 3,000 children. I'm also interested in seeing how, what happens when we provide differential dosage in a project like this. I know Jekol talked about games and applications, and we interestingly used, we have also leveraged a grant from Qualcomm to introduce games that emphasize on language learning, Hindi language learning, to understand what happens when we give print and audio material to a set of children. What happens when you add digital components to it? Is there a difference in learning? Is there an accelerated learning? How do children react to digital content in that sense? This is about our reach. We, Sesame Workshop India, our team trained the teachers directly. We did 2 rounds of training. The first round of training happened in September last year, wherein we introduced them to the concepts of Gully Gully Sim Sim, the content and how we are planning to roll it out. The second round happened in July this year, which was primarily a refresher of the previous training, and it was to reintroduce the learning cycle, which Ruchi will talk about shortly, because we found that the teachers were unable to adapt to the learning cycle that we had introduced. So I give the phone back to Ruchi, who will take you through our content approach, as this we feel is what makes this project highly innovative and new in this situation.
So I spoke about the needs assessment. So what we did was the needs assessment kind of directly helped us to crack the way the program is going to be structured and the reflections it will have in the development of our content. So the content was completely based within the guidelines that the National Curriculum Framework provides us. But at the same time, we were very cognizant of the fact of what the needs assessment also reflected with respect to children's learning levels, and what the secondary research was telling us, that children are basically performing at 1 grade level lower than the grade that they are enrolled in. So that helped us, those guidelines helped us arrive at an educational framework where we really prioritize the outcomes that we are going to be pushing for within the grant. So the whole content of the ACR project was designed around the whole word approach. And I say the whole word approach is that because the reason why we did that was because we understood that children all know that children learn much more better when words are presented in their context, they are meaningful, and they're able to attack the words and the reading in a much more informed and a better fashion. So what we did was that we designed our content around the whole word approach, and what it meant was that we took words which were in the children's vocabulary, the words that children were familiar with, and we converted them into storybooks. So these storybooks had very high frequency words which were familiar to children, and we weaved stories around that, right? So now I'm going to take you through the reading cycle, and I'm going to try and explain every single step. In the first step of the reading cycle, we introduce a storybook which has high frequency words for children. Once the storybook is introduced with the help of a teacher, we have that same storybook also as a recorded audio storybook, which was played through a very low-cost MP3 player in the classroom. So the teacher would, in the first step of introduction, the teacher would read out the storybook. Then she would play that storybook again to children in the second stage of listen and familiarize. So children got familiar with the story as they repeatedly listened to the story and flipped the pages along as they listened. In the third stage of read, along with the storybook and the audio set, we gave each and every child what we call as a phonic phone. A phonic phone is a low-cost PVC pipe phone which, when placed to a child's ear, like you can see in the picture, would basically give a heightened audio feedback. The reason of introducing this phonic phone was very, very strategic because, as Anuragini was mentioning, each class was a multi-grade classroom. What happened is, in a multi-grade classroom, we would have students ranging from 40 to all the way up to 80 children in a class. So in order to manage and give children a private, quiet reading time, we introduced these phonic phones, and what happened is when the children listened to the audio and repeated what they listened, the sentences that they listened into the phonic phone, the class volumes would go down, and it helps children to practice reading with help of this phone while they are present in a very, very chaotic, busy learning environment. Moving on to the next step, which is practice, we have the same, we designed what we call as reading sheets, which were again short passages of high frequency words, which children would be able to again attempt to read along with their phones and along with their audio device. Next stage of understand and apply, children had workbooks where they could do a lot of activities and worksheets. This is the material that they have been reading and practicing and reading and and understanding, so that they apply what have they been reading. These worksheets were very simple worksheets with stickers and pictures, so that just developing reading would be supported in understanding what the words meant, understanding what was the meaning of the words. In last stage of reflect, the teacher would do some kind of an innovative activity with the help of another material, which is the story pond, in which the teacher would help the children to engage in an activity which was based on the story that they have been reading. So in order to complete the entire cycle, we said that it would take around 6 to 7 weeks to complete a cycle for each storybook. And in the content, we gave 5 storybooks. So for every cycle, the teacher would take around 13 weeks to complete the entire cycle with 2 storybooks per cycle. What we also give to to what subset of the population was, like Ragini said, that there were digital games also which were also deployed in certain classrooms, and these games were specifically designed around attacking Hindi comprehension and Hindi reading skills. So we had a suite of 5 games which the teachers would give the children, and children would practice their word and their sentences and Hindi reading on these games as well.
Okay, so thank you, Ruchi. That was primarily our cycle and the approach that we felt has worked fairly well in a situation where the children do not have access to any kind of engaging learning, where the teachers are struggling with finding mechanisms of teaching the child, and in a situation where, like we've been saying, that there's a lot of chaos. So how will a child learn? So the introduction of learning materials in the hands of the child, and the digital components we feel have created a certain buzz and excitement in these schools. We are still waiting for the final results of the research, the second round of research, and we are hoping to share it with you as soon as we get it from the agency. Thank you.
Thank you very much to both of you. I know we just have a few minutes left in our presentation, so I'm going to go quickly to the questions that have been sent in. First of all, if you could explain what methods you used when engaging with the government, for instance, the Ministry of Education, to implement this project.
So what we do is we know that there are departments who are responsible for the primary schools. We took appointment and presented our program approach. Once we got an approval from the main head of the department, we then went down to the districts, and that's where the challenge was, to engage with the district heads and have them approve of the concept or the intervention. So the paperwork itself took time, and other than the permissions, the district heads and known as community resource centers. These are people who look after schools and school interaction with teachers. We work with them in identifying the schools, in ensuring that the teachers attend the trainings, because that is a huge challenge. In making sure that the materials are received by the teachers, because again, these are very, very rural areas, and not courier don't reach there regularly. So make sure that the teachers get the content and they start using it. For our engagement with them is from permission to engagement. Our next step would be to make sure that they start monitoring the schools as well. Start visiting the schools and giving us feedback from their visits.
Next question is, who was conducting the teacher training, and what measures were put in place to ensure what was learned in the training was actually applied in the classroom?
So that's a great question. We really follow a cascade training model where we train a group of teachers from the government, and they go down and train the actual participants of the teachers. But in Bihar, when we learned that there was very low participation from the government, we and the teachers. So when we say we, it's Sesame Workshop team who created batches of teachers, and we trained them directly. How to ensure that there is transfer of information and they follow. Unfortunately, we did not have time to talk about it, but we used teacher training videos. So we have set video modules that demonstrate how the material is to be used in a classroom situation. So by using these videos, it became fairly easy to show what teachers are expected to do. The thing is, we do have pre and post teacher training questionnaires, primarily assess their knowledge about the intervention before and after, and obviously after going through training, they were clearer on what we wished them to do. This was followed by programmatic monitoring. That we did go to schools to see the teachers were following the trainings that we had given, and based on the feedback, we have made several mid-course corrections as well.
Next question is, how much of the content is derived from Sesame Street or Golly Golly Sim Sim? How is it adapted for this context?
All the content that we have is basically Sesame Street, Gully Gully Sim Sim content. We develop our content in-house. We do keep in mind the national curriculum framework and the state curriculum framework, and we take a lot of insights from that framework. But the way the content is ultimately structured depends on the needs of the children and the learning patterns that children are showing, which comes up in detail in the needs assessment. But yes, the content is developed in-house by Sesame, and a lot of our Muppets push the content further, which further makes the content very engaging for the children, because they see it on television, and then because Gully Gully Sim Sim is a fairly popular children's program in India as well, just like Sesame Street. So it further creates this whole cycle of engagement where the children see something on television and then they read books by the same characters which they see on television. So that's how we leverage our content from the classes from the TV into the classes.
Just for one last question here, and that is, with the storybooks and other technologies incorporated, Sustainable is rolling out such an intervention at larger scale. And second to that, what was, if you could share, if you know, the basic unit cost per learner of the range of print and technology-supported content?
Okay, so we are working at scale. We are reaching 30,000 children in our intervention. Per unit cost, which we have shared in our project proposal, I think $17 per child, which includes everything, from the print to our time to everything that we are spending. Sustainability-wise, luckily in India with the new government, there's a lot of push towards using digital media in the classroom. A lot of states have already started integrating smartphones. So that's a loose term, but the teachers are already familiar with it. That gives us an edge to take back to the government and say, hey, look, you are getting additional funding from the central government. Here is content that you can now take back into classrooms. We already initiated that conversation in other states, if not Bihar. And the more work at scale, and Bihar has about 45,000 primary schools only. So if you multiply that by those many children, it's a huge number. Cost per child will actually come down significantly. And it's very much, and when we plan our budgets, we try and keep the intervention, whatever materials we create, we keep it within the allocated budget of the government. If the government is saying that we will spend 500 rupees per child per year on the materials, we know that whatever materials we provide fits into that budget if they decide to scale it up.
Been several requests of people information if they are able to access materials that you have shared today. What is the best way for them to get in touch with you if that's possible?
Absolutely. We would love to share our materials and exchange ideas. Michelle, you share our mail IDs with them. Do you think that's possible?
Okay. I can chat that out to the group. Also, is there a website that you want to share, perhaps?
I think the website doesn't have this content because we haven't taken that approval from World Vision yet. Okay. So we can send them the materials, we can send them more details on the learning cycle. And anybody is attending the M-Education Alliance later this month, being that somebody from World Vision talks about our project, because we've been asked to send some materials across. Share our mail IDs and we're happy to respond.
Okay. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today. I'm just sending quickly to everyone a news presentation or email address via the chat, so you can have that at the bottom. For contact information. And we want to thank you for joining us today for our webinar. We want to especially thank our presenters from Sesame Street Workshop and World Education, and for the late hour that they are presenting in Cambodia and India, and many of you are probably joining us at a time that might be late for you as well. So thank you for joining us. I just wanted to remind you that a link to this recording will be shared as soon as we receive it from WebEx shortly, and share that via our Twitter account, which is RingGCD, and our newsletter, and we'll also email that to you. So thanks again for joining us, and have a great day or evening to all of you.